had an interesting week. I think I'm becoming senile. I think I put things up and they're not there. So I know I did this video. It was over chapter 2 in this textbook, and I sent you the electronic copy. I just wanted very briefly to talk about chapter 2. It's called Nativism and Language and Restrictions. Now, this, compared to immigration issues now, the language issue is almost invisible. It used to be the biggest part of ESL and conflicts with the rights of second language learners. So historically, the movement was early on back in the Revolutionary War days, up until the 1850s, people were very tolerant of having even laws written in different languages, particularly German. And remember, it's a white European aspect. So of course, the areas like Ohio and Pennsylvania had laws written in German and in English, and that was tolerated because they were the only people there. They were the dominant population. There was no one there that was concerned about their loyalty either. So in the 1960s, S.I. Hayakawa, a senator in California, and a professor at, I think he was at Berkeley, if I remember correctly. But he was very preoccupied with English only, because there was a perception among people on a wide scale in California that English was being overwhelmed by Spanish. And so people became afraid. They thought, my language, I may be a minority in my own majority state, And California has incredible diversity, especially high Hispanic. And so there was this movement to make English the official language. There's even a website or two. And this is, it led to some laws. The laws attempted to restrict government workers or giving tests for like a driver's license. They tried to prohibit those from being in different languages. They said, no, you can't do it in Vietnamese. Everybody takes it in English, even though they know the rules and they can drive well, because they lack, maybe they didn't speak English, they couldn't take the written test. They didn't do very well on it, they couldn't pass it. And you really don't want to have all these people drive. You don't want to have a lot of people driving without a driver's license, which means they're driving without insurance. But there was this preoccupation with, they've got to use English to take the driver's test, or they have to use English to vote, etc. And there were a number of legal cases, and it's not important in chapter 2 you remember these. I would like you to glance over chapter 2 and just give it a good once over, look it over. It's a very good history. It talks about the rate of language acquisition. And basically these laws, these restrictive laws, were very symbolic. Courts, for the most part, struck them down, thought they were silly, because the fact is that overwhelmingly English is the language of the land, that attempting to suppress other languages was a waste of time, or it was kind of meaningless. But still, there were a lot of people that passed laws, and Arkansas is in here, city of Pomona, the Asian community in Pomona, California. They tried to restrict that all characters used in advertising had to be the alphabet, the English alphabet. In other words, you couldn't have Chinese characters for advertising, which this gets into business and free speech, and it was struck down. Arizona, which is also on the forefront of immigration or immigrant crackdowns, was also a group in 1988. They wanted English to be the official language of Arizona, even though the state had obviously been Spanish speaking longer than it had been English speaking. and it became an issue of whether this is discriminatory. Most of these were struck down. Um, it's not really so much important to remember the law cases, so that's why I'm not having you read this in any great detail, is to remember that attempts to restrict the language you use, or to say to people that it became this game of how much English is allowed or how much Spanish can be allowed, even affected how people. It actually affected how people saw the First Amendment, free speech. They said, well, do I get arrested if I speak in Spanish? Or can I use Spanish to do my job if I'm a government official, if I need to use it? So most of these were struck down, and it was found that it was that the impracticality of the English only was what defeated it. So I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on this. I did make this video already, and for some reason it just, I don't know where it went, because I remember putting it on the link, but I must have not hit something on Canvas and lost it again. So I'm going to put this up again just so I covered it, but it's not a major issue or something. So thank you, and I appreciate somebody pointed that out.